everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast, and this week's podcast is sponsored by the Council on Aging. This is your co-host, John Alexander Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Andria Carter.
And if you did not know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African-American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky area. And today we have a special guest with us, Chef Catrina Mills. How are you doing today, Catrina?
I am well, thank you.
No problem. And before we head into our main topic, we got some chocolate news to share. So, Andrea, what is the chocolate news of the week?
It is with a sadness that our chocolate news is rocked a little bit by the death of Stephen Twitch Boss. Many people might know him as the DJ from the Ellen DeGeneres show, who would always ramp up the audience and get Ellen to dance to whatever beat that he was spinning that day. Or you may know him from the longtime and beloved dancing DJ from
So You Think You Can Dance.
Thank you. So I could not think. All of a sudden, my mind went blank. I was like, haven't seen that show in so long.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. It was sudden. He was 40. He had a wife and 3 children. He and his wife just celebrated their 9th wedding anniversary. And so this just came out of the blue. I'm so sorry to see him go, but he knew how to spin some music, and he was very talented. He'd always been on television, whether it was a competition show or whether he was judging or he was spinning music. He was a great personality. He always had a smile on his face, and it was just extremely talented. I'm just sorry to hear that he died today. Next up, another thing that was announced today is the interim police chief, Teresa Theetge, is now the police chief for the city of Cincinnati. She's been interim since Chief Isaac retired earlier this year. She's been proving her worth running the police department. She's been with the police department for over 32 years. She's been out and about in the community. I'm just sort of sad on how the whole thing was announced. I don't think it was fair that the FOP president leaked that she had been picked and took the thunder away from the city manager, who this is her first big hire, and he wouldn't let her announce it. And said he stole the thunder, and everyone was reporting it before she confirmed it. How do we know that she had not picked anybody else, and that releasing her name was just a misnomer or aloof or what have you? I think it's another thing about Dan Hills that has gone against the grain of authority, and the fact that he's the FOP president, it was just wrong. He should have respect the city manager's office. He should have let the city announce it. I think she is going to be, she's an interesting pick. We'll see what she does, but she's also an inside person. And for a police department to grow, sometimes you need an outside voice. And we've had outside voices before, but she is the first female police chief. So we'll see what happens. Then also Biden signed the gay marriage law, calling it a blow against hate. It was passed by Congress and approved. So the Supreme Court cannot strike down the marriage law that goes, that upholds gay marriage. It also upholds interracial marriage and a few other types of marriages. So everyone is very happy about this. And I think it's just fantastic that, who you love should not defer you from getting married. And I'm just glad that they codified this and that everyone who has been married in same-sex marriage is protected. Now they just need to pass the voting rights bill, and I'll be very, very happy. And I think they should have passed this along with the voting rights bill before the end of their session, because I think they're going to have difficulty coming 2024. And I think they need to protect everybody and, make it fair for everyone for the 2024 presidential election. But, people are people.
Yeah, people are people.
And finally, for the bourbon lovers out there, and if you've tried Uncle Nearest, which I, for one, have, This is a Black owned premium whiskey distillery, named for a former slave who was known as Uncle Nearest, who taught the former owner of Jack Daniels, how to distill whiskey. And the process that he used to distill whiskey is now known as the Tennessee process. And if you want to be known as Tennessee whiskey, you have to do this process, developed by Uncle Nearest. And they have exceeded the 100 million sales mark for this award-winning whiskey. And it's very good whiskey, whether you mix it or drink it straight. I'm very excited about it. Have tried it since the beginning it was introduced. Now they went from a 12-year age whiskey to now it's a 5-year age whiskey because they're doing it themselves. So right now you can get 1880, 1856, 1884. You can't get the 1820 because it's aging in barrels right now and it won't be available until 2026. I hope to God I'm in line to get a bottle when that happens. But they have introduced now a rye version of Uncle Nearest. And I got to go to a bourbon tasting a couple of weeks ago and I got to taste the rye. And it is unlike any other rye I have ever tasted. And what's unique about it is they aged the rye in the former Uncle Nearest bourbon barrels. So the flavor of the other of whether it's 1856 or 1884 is in the rye. And it makes it for a smoother rye and a smoother taste. And it will not be available. The rye will not be available in Ohio until January. But if you can get it where you can find it, I say get it and try it. You will not be wrong about it. And that is the chocolate news for today.
I have to say, Andrea, I did not know that about whiskey. So thank you for the little lesson about that.
Well, if really, truly, I am a small bourbon collector. I am a small collector. But 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I read the article about Uncle Nearest, read about Fawn Weaver, who founded the company. And I said, it's Black owned, and you know how you want to support Black owned products. And so I bought a bottle and I took it with me for a weekend in Chicago for friends. I was joining friends for the jazz festival up there. And so when I said, hey, you got to try this, and they wanted to mix it, I said, no, you need to try it straight, neat. And they did. That bottle was gone by the end of that weekend. And that launched the beginning of our bourbon education. One friend from that weekend now has a 100-bottle collection.
Wow.
Of bourbon. Yes, she is serious. I mean, my little $20 collection is put to shame compared to what she's got.
I bet.
But it's about as you develop your palate for wine or beer. I've developed my palate. I'm still developing my palate for bourbon, and I can blind taste test some bourbon and know which one it is, but I'm still learning. But there are, the bourbon from a 4-year or 5-year age bourbon to a 12, 20-year age, it is the degree of taste and age and the burn or the rye. It's very good. And cook with it too. I put it in my barbecue sauce. So
all right.
Not the Uncle Nearest though. I put something else in my barbecue sauce. But it's a fantastic thing. So that's enough about bourbon.
Gotcha.
It's a great segue though to talk to Chef Mills.
If you leave it up to me, we'll talk a little bit more about bourbon.
Okay. Are you a bourbon collector?
I am a bourbonite.
Oh, yay! Yes.
I'm a bourbon girl. I belong to the Black Bourbon Society and have been making friends at New Riff and a lot of other places and things. And so, Andria, you're my spirit animal.
Well, I have not joined the Black Bourbon Society yet, but that's my goal to do in 2023. And I still want to do the bourbon trail. But what is your favorite bourbon?
I really don't have a favorite because it really goes with my moods, but I am partial to makers used to be my go-tos, and then there's so many, so it really depends on your mood and your taste and how you're drinking, who you're with, and all of that. But there's staples you keep, and so I keep like Four Roses and Uncle Nearest and the New Riff and those that I either like to just kind of have as my go-tos or share, and then Woodford Reserve, the makers. So lots of different ones, and again, like you said, it's just continually learning.
Well, you said my favorite, Four Roses, but also I have Woodford Reserve. I have the Blue Note, which is new, Blue Note, and
Yes.
it's Crossroads. I have a Willet. I just got a Weller, which is hard to get. Someone
It
gave
is,
me
and
a Weller.
it wasn't a year ago. I'm so mad. I had Weller's was one of my go-tos, but it's hard to get
I
now.
haven't even opened that bottle yet.
Oh, it's so good.
I have also, Basenhaven, a couple other minor ones that
Low proof.
Low Proof, Angel Envy, New
Good one.
Riff. I have to go back and taste New Riff again, because when I tasted it, I was like, but it's something that I have to go back and try again, because I have several friends who love New Riff. So I'm going to go back and try it again, and go hang out at the distillery and do a taste test.
Right.
But I also like Maker's Mark, which it was known as Maker's Mark 46, is now
That's
known
my
as
favorite. Yes.
it's now known as Maker's Mark's French Oak.
Yeah.
So they took the 46 off, and then I also like the Gentleman Jack.
There's so many, but I'm surprised with the Jack. I can't. I don't care for the Gentleman Jack too much, but it's definitely not off the list.
Well, Gentleman Jack is more of a 1950s style gangster esque whiskey. It's kind of like it's a flat, smooth bourbon that gives you that essence of, if you sit down and have a little shot and talk shop in a gangster style, you get that feel from it. But I keep a little small bottle, and go from there. And then I have the flavored ones, which is the one from Canada, Crown Royal, and I have the lemon. I have one lemon from I think it's either Evan Williams or Jack Daniels, but I use that for when I want a hot toddy. So
Evan Williams is good to cook with.
yes, it is. I love the black label or the white label.
Black label.
Mm.
Actually, the white label is usually pretty inexpensive, and I grab that the most. But I do like the black label. But Evan Williams is my first go-to, especially cost-wise, to cook with.
Yeah, because I first started using bourbon, and we're going to get into food and talk in a second. Um, I started cooking with bourbon when I was making chicken liver pate. And the recipe calls for sherry, and I didn't have any sherry, so I substituted the sherry for bourbon.
Yeah, classic. Nope, nope, probably
Fantastic.
better.
It gives it a more caramel-esque taste to it.
It does.
But we are here today, yes, talk about food, but we're into the Christmas holiday, Kwanzaa, and New Year's. So first of all, let me introduce the audience to you formally. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You do it better than I do on who you are.
Well, again, my name is Catrina Mills. I am a real chef, and I have been for a very long time. I am not from here, so it's a lot of people, they only know my career is as long as I've been here and been doing things, but I've been cooking professionally for over 30 years. Grew up in it. I'm from Chicago and New Orleans, so my mom, she had a business, and it started that way. I kind of grew up. I literally grew up in a nightclub. That is not where my bourbon love started, though. And it was kind of just, I just kept falling back into food. I've done a lot of different things, but I've been here for a while, doing mostly catering. I had a brick and mortar a couple of times. The last one was actually inside a brewery in Newport, which is how I started developing that New Riff relationship. And COVID happened. So I ended up, and I've always been teaching for a long time at Midwest Culinary, as an adjunct contractor back and forth. And this social media thing has been good and bad, right?
Right.
So the person that I had known for a very long time on social media, we had never actually met before, but she knew all about me. She contacted me, said, "Hey, we need a chef, blah blah blah," and it was the Finley Culinary Training Program. So in January this year, I came in as a contractor to start teaching, and ended up taking that over as the program manager officially in April as a member of the Finley Market staff running the program, physically located at CityLink, so that's where people recognize it as well. And in the meantime, I also do a lot of other teaching and culinary demos. I do a lot of demos for P&G and other the cancer support community. So I'm always teaching in some aspect, but I'm still always cooking, which is good. And I have a line of seasonings. I do the classes at Jungle Gems, and I'm like leaving off like 8 million other things, but those are the most recent things
Mm.
that all the balls juggling in the air that I have right now.
Wow. So, I mean, if I had my love of cooking, my mother taught me early when I was 8. I was her sous chef, especially for Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And so, I learned how to cook and do different things watching her and things like that. So when she passed and my sister and I, we were just rediscovering her recipes. There was something she didn't write down, but as I was remembering, I started writing down what I remembered and got those tastes that she did. But we're here to talk about Christmas dinner. And what do you recommend would be a good menu, or what to watch out for if you're cooking Christmas dinner, whether it's a turkey, a ham, a chicken, what have you?
I think Christmas is a perfect time for people to get creative. People have kind of started doing that with Thanksgiving because they're getting tired of the same stuff, but rolling right out of a traditional Thanksgiving meal, nobody wants to do the same thing all over again. Usually it's the same thing and they just switch out turkey for beef at Christmas, or ham or something, or actually they switch out the ham for Easter. So it's this common theme of having the same menu for these big holidays in Black families that people are getting really tired of. They're increasing their palates, they're traveling, they're finding out and learning more about our African heritage, by the different food ways. Jessica B. Harris's High on the Hog that turned into that Netflix series, really helped people start to explore and look at that. And so I'm seeing more of that. So for a Christmas dinner, I really, really like to see people get stick with what you know with some things, right? Definitely get creative. And for me, I do a lot of healthy cooking and nutritional spend on things. So I always want to see people doing things either in a healthier way or subbing out some of the less healthy things, or just start to modify, but using more fresh herbs and veggies, lean meats, not necessarily those heavy carbs and starches like the mac and cheese and stuffing and dressing and mashed potatoes. We have like 5 different starches with a fatty meat or a lot of gravy and things like that. So I like to see people incorporate. It's easier to get fruits and veggies year round now. I like to see them incorporate the fruits and veggies more, cooking them in healthier ways, using flavors, using seasonings, experimenting with the ethnic flavors, and just going back to just staying a little bit fresh and local and shopping, where you are, so that you have access to better things, and just have you can still have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas spread, a memorable dinner. Everybody can be happy and fed, and you still can cheat a little bit. And then going into the new year, um, this is where people just kind of let it go or lose it, and then they try to, fool themselves with the New Year's resolution, and it's a cycle. But Christmas doesn't have to be another heavy dinner. It could really be really fun and flavorful.
For you, do you incorporate any of the New Orleans style dishes into your Christmas meal?
Traditionally for us, gumbo was Christmas, and seafood gumbo. So,
Oh,
and oyster dressing. So that's something a lot of people don't like too much, but those are two staples for Christmas for us. And my mom, she would save all year round to be able to afford all of the seafood to make these huge amounts of seafood gumbo. And so, and traditionally in the like New Orleans cuisine, gumbo is, and stemming from West African too, even though it's not necessarily has anything to do with Christianity or Christmas, but Christmas time and the end of harvest and things like that. Gumbo is a Christmas thing, and so it was in our family. We looked forward to we probably almost didn't have gumbo any other time um of the year until getting ready to look forward to that big you know treat of having seafood gumbo for Christmas.
Sometimes, I look at different food magazines, and before it went away, Louisiana Cooking did a special for Lent. They had usually they do the king cake, and then they had an etouffee special, and they had all these different versions of etouffee, and then there was a vegetable version of it that I didn't realize you could add it to it until that magazine. And I was like, so that expanded it. But also for Christmas, I would say if people are watching their weight and they want a more plant-based side dish to go along with whatever protein they choose, what would you recommend?
That's where I would really take advantage of the seasonal veggies or winter veggies. And you could still have your greens and things like that, but then we're not adding all of the heavy starches or gravies and things like that, but roasted veggies, braised veggies, depending on where you live. Or me, it doesn't matter where I live, I'll grill all year round. So, just grilling your veggies and incorporating them and just eating less of the other things. And you feel better, and it leaves room for dessert.
I know for Kwanzaa, do you ever cook anything for Kwanzaa, or that's just?
There aren't foods specifically associated with Kwanzaa. It's just whatever you decide to cook. But because of Kwanzaa's West African origin, or the principles pulled from West Africa, you're going to see most of the things that we commonly associate with soul food anyway for Kwanzaa, like sweet potato and okra and things like that. There aren't foods specifically associated with Kwanzaa in stemming from how Kwanzaa was created. It's just whatever you felt like cooking at the time that brings the family together. So the whole point is bringing people together, the unity of Kwanzaa, and food always does that in every culture. So that's the idea of whoever you're bringing together, you're going to cook food that resonates with those spirit, the spirit of those people, the spirit of the company, the sensibilities, their favorites, whatever's going to make them happy.
For New Year's, and I know the traditional is, at least with Black families, it's chitlins, cornbread, black eyed peas. I'm missing one. Greens?
Or yeah, fish? There's it depends on, how people pull from their culture. It was collard greens because collard greens resemble folded paper money for prosperity. And in Louisiana is a strong German population, so that kind of morphed into cabbage sometimes, or you'll see it mixed. And actually in Italy, lentils resemble coins, so that was a Eurocentric thing that was brought to it, with the lentils that you see sometimes, just again for prosperity. Black eyed peas are indigenous to Africa, so you saw that, and things that were celebrating around, and not necessarily chitlins per se, but pork in general, because that's what was available. Pigs, hogs, they're easy to farm, so you can, breed a lot of them and have that in abundance. And everybody knows the old stories about, enslaved Africans being able to just get what, they could at the time. And most of the time that was some kind of pork. And we salted it, we cured it, we made it last, we seasoned our food with it. And then there's all kinds of things from the Gullah Low Country that comes in with Hoppin' Johns, where that's the rice and cowpeas, which people confuse with black eyed peas. So that's how the black eyed peas kind of stayed in there that way. But it's all about these spiritual traditions. The black eyed peas specifically had more to do with how West Africans celebrated certain deities, and black eyed peas was a favorite food of one of the deities. So you ate the black eyed peas, you cooked the black eyed peas to please that deity that you were worshiping. But most of it is for blessings and prosperity going into the new year. That has some kind of symbolism for New Year's.
Okay, I know we have to start wrapping up, but I just wanted to get an idea for those who enjoy a little taste of drink with their meal. What would you recommend as a good wine to go with your meal at Christmas?
Christmas, I think, is really nice. If you're gonna have people that like whites and reds. A Pinot Grigio, you can't go wrong with the Chardonnay, and there's some really good Chardonnays out there now. If you like reds, I like Merlots and Cabernets, usually because people are cooking beef around Christmas, and those go nicely along with. They have those plum notes and things like that that go well with the beef and other things that people are cooking. And I wouldn't be too hesitant to even ask people to consider some beers for the beer snobs out there. Yeah, we're not talking about Budweiser and Coors Light and all that. We want good craft beers, but and then and a lot of these breweries, they do really really good seasonal beers where they're kind of spicing them or flavoring them or just making, brewing them with a certain grain mash that they're comparable. They're getting up there with being just as good considerations to pair with food as wine and your whiskey or bourbon or whatever you have.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chef Mills, for coming on and giving us a quick overview about Christmas, Kwanzaa, and New Year's. And I hope to have you back again to talk about certain subjects regarding food and cooking and culture and things like that. So thank you so very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you reached out to me. I'm glad we met. I'm glad we met the way we did too, around food.
Oh, I have a very bad addiction to food magazines. And I used to have 100 cookbook collection, and now it was cut in half. So I'm a foodie. So trust me, we'll be talking. So John?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, thanks again, Chef, for coming on our show. Do you have any social links you want to throw out there for our viewers?
Um, I can. I'm not the greatest at that. So I have some pretty benign pages. I'm on, and I should have written it down because I do have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, but I couldn't even begin to tell you my Twitter name. I get them all confused, and my Instagram name, but my regular name you can't find me on Facebook that way. But yeah, I have a Facebook page, group page called How to Boil Water that is kind of a hodgepodge page for foodies. So we could continue conversations. And if they have questions or just like to, share, that's a way there.
All right. Well, folks, thanks again for listening. And I want to thank Andria for coming on and sharing the chocolate news of the week. Thank you, Andria.
You're very welcome.
And folks, this will be the last show of 2022. We'll be back on in the beginning of January. So I want to wish everyone happy holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or any other holiday that I missed. So hopefully everyone has a good holiday season. Oh, and also New Year's. I hope everyone has a happy New Year's too. I want to thank the Council on Aging for sponsoring this episode. And remember, folks, you can find more information about today's topic and past podcast episodes at www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the Sesh newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. In addition, the Cincinnati Herald is now looking for news distribution and delivery agents. Please contact our publisher, Walter White, at 513-680-7076 for more information. I'm John Reese.
I'm Andria Carter.
And have a good holiday.